Hi, Kevin, Property Soldier here. Okay, so what I thought I'd do is put a little video together going out on my social media, and also this goes out as a recording on my Serviced Accommodation Property podcast. Selling the benefits of serviced accommodation. I'm going to go through 6 points which are selling the benefits of service accommodation to help you get more deals. Now, this could be something that could convince you, or to turn your property into service accommodation. But for most people, this is going to be how to get rent to SA deals, or even service accommodation management deals. Now, in another podcast episode, what I'm going to do is explain the difference between rent to serviced accommodation and service accommodation management. I'm not going to cover that in this episode. I'll do that in a subsequent episode, so stay tuned for that one. So let's just talk about the benefits of serviced accommodation, which is definitely going to help you get more deals. Now, ultimately, selling is serving if you are selling the benefits of something that is clearly of interest to the other party. And so I know for a fact that there's plenty of benefits to landlords for properties that we use as service accommodation. So first off, now, by the way, if you're watching this live or watching this on catch up on my social media, then by all means, type some questions and comments in. And for anyone that's watching it on the Service Accommodation Property podcast, then you're obviously going to be watching the recording of the podcast. Okay, so show home condition is the main benefit to landlords. So a lot of landlords, I've had tenants, and those tenants don't always keep the properties in show home condition. So I've still got single lets, I've still got HMOs, and they're not kept as nicely as my service accommodation property, that is for sure. So benefit number one, property kept in show home condition. Now there's other sort of minor little benefits, which is that you can be keeping on top of the minor maintenance and things like that. And guess what, with properties that are used via a letting agents quite often add quite a bit on, and just to get a plumber out to deal with a leaky tap can cost a fortune, can't it? So that's one of the benefits, property kept in show home condition, but also you can keep on top of minor maintenance. Okay, so that's benefit number one to the landlord. And the other one sort of links into it quite nicely, is that there are no problem tenants to manage. So even with letting agents, sometimes landlords have to put up with and deal with problem tenants that are a pain, and definitely landlords that are managing their properties themselves are going from time to time to have problem tenants to manage. Well, they're not going to get that if you, let's say you are the operator, you're the person renting the property from the landlord to use as service accommodation, then ultimately you are the tenant. Remember, you will interact and deal with the guests in your service accommodation properties, and the landlord will not need to meet or interact or have any dealings with the guests. So ultimately it's a one-stop shop. You are the tenant. Now, potentially there can also be more money for the landlord. So definitely, if the landlord is normally using a letting agent, then let's say their market rent is £1,000, and they could be paying 150 of that easily to the letting agent for monthly management. Well, guess what? You could give the market rate. You could give £1,000 to the landlord per calendar month, but charge no management fee. And so ultimately, if you were going to go straight to a letting agent and the rent was £1,000, then that's what you would pay. Clearly, if you go direct to landlord, you're typically still going to pay the market rent that the landlord's asking, which is £1,000, but the landlord's going to save money on not using a letting agent. So that's a benefit that ultimately the landlord can get more money. Now, if the deal stacks, you could even offer the landlord even more money than the single let rate, couldn't you? And so that's definitely a benefit. And with service accommodation management, where effectively you charge the landlord a percentage of turnover, then again, typically that's a scenario where the owner of the property is going to get more money on average over the course of a year than they would at a single let rate. So potentially more money for the landlord. And for us, 9 times out of 10, that is definitely the case. Now, the other benefit, and it comes down to saving landlords money, and so to incentivize them to give you their properties, is Section 24. So landlords who own properties in their own name, who've got a mortgage on the properties, they will be affected by Section 24 because they're no longer able to offset the mortgage interest against the income from the property when it's being used as single let or HMO. Whereas once the property is used as effectively furnished holiday let, so serviced accommodation, furnished holiday let is a form of serviced accommodation. And what we do, if it's a rent to SA type scenario, is we will arrange a profit share type of rent to SA, which means that the income goes on the furnished holiday let page of the tax return. It's a fluctuating income because it is a profit share, and we can make sure that over the course of a year, the landlord is still getting as much, if not more, than the single let rate, but can now avoid the Section 24 tax. So that's another significant benefit to promote to the landlord if Section 24 is a problem. And again, don't be afraid to ask. You will be surprised if you just ask the question, if you're going direct to a landlord, that, you know, have you got a mortgage on the property? Is it in your own name? And if the answer is yes, then you should definitely talk about Section 24 and maybe get the landlord to have a look at how much their extra tax they're now paying because of Section 24. And clearly that is a benefit to the landlord to avoid that tax as well. And then we get into capital allowances. So, you know, many of you that have seen me talk about service accommodation, you'll know that I love capital allowances, because once a property is used as serviced accommodation, then the owner of the property can claim tens of thousands of pounds worth of tax-free income. They don't know how to get their hands on it. People that I teach, my service accommodation trainings, they know how to get their hands on, or to help the landlord to get their hands on capital allowances. But guess what? That's a significant benefit to the landlord as well, to say, look, you give me the property to use as service accommodation, and that you can claim tens of thousands of pounds worth of tax-free income because of capital allowances. Why is that? It's because furnished holiday let is a trading activity for their properties, and that income goes on the furnished holiday let page of the tax return, and they can therefore claim capital allowances. Now, please don't expect your accountants or their accountant to understand how much capital allowance they can claim. You need a capital allowances surveyor. So people do my training, they get access to my capital allowances surveyor, who is able to get an awful lot more money than the majority of accountants, in fact, all accountants, in my experience. And so absolutely, you're able to sell the benefits to landlords of the capital allowances, and that's another reason why they're likely to give you their property to use as service accommodation. If they gave it to a letting agent, or if they let it out as single let themselves, they're not getting their hands on those capital allowances. It is as simple as that. And then another one that I want to talk about now, so the final one, if you like, is EPCs. Now, this is something that we have not yet seen come to fruition, is EPCs. What the government have announced is that for rental properties, landlords are going to have to achieve an EPC of C or above. Now, guess what? That is going to cost landlords a lot of money. Literally tens of thousands of pounds in many, many instances. Imagine all of the stone properties, just the Victorian and older stone built properties that aren't cavity wall. Imagine all the non-standard ex-local authority properties that are not cavity, they're just concrete slab. The insulation properties of those is extremely low, and it would be very, very expensive for landlords to get them to AC. And come 2025, that's when it's proposed for landlords to have to get to EPCC. Now, I predict that that's going to cause an awful lot of landlords to want to get out, because if they can't achieve C, unless they spend, say, 20, 30 grand on their property, then they might just think, do you know what, I'm just going to sell. So it's going to create a couple of opportunities, actually, because guess what? This is not applying to furnished holiday let properties, okay? Because the reason why it's not applying to furnished holiday let properties or serviced accommodation properties is because the aim of it is to stop tenants from having to pay too much on their energy bills. That is the whole point of this. But guess what? Your guests in serviced accommodation do not pay the energy bills, do they? They are taking the property on a short-term rental, and all bills are included in that price. So that it's not going to be falling under the same category as normal landlords are falling into. And because you, either if you are the owner of the property, you're going to be paying the bills yourself. And also, if you are doing rent to SA, guess what? Same gig, you are going to be paying the bills yourself. So guess what? If a lot of landlords want to sell, that's going to be an attractive purchase price for somebody who is not going to be affected by EPC, isn't it? Now, I would be more than happy buying a property if it was going to be really nice and cheap, because the seller is selling it because of EPC, but I don't need to worry about that EPC issue if I'm going to be using the property as service accommodation. Now, here's another really cool thing. It doesn't necessarily mean the landlord's going to sell. You might go and speak to the landlord and explain this EPC type situation to the landlord and say, so guess what? The way you're currently using the property as a single let means you have got this problem, but if you give it to me to use that service accommodation, you no longer have that problem. So that is an extremely exciting thing that's coming. And the reason why I'm bringing this up, guys, is that just recently I was doing a training, with Progressive Property, or at Progressive Property. I'm the lead trainer at Progressive for serviced accommodation. And, somebody was in the room being all negative and just saying, do you know what, all the best deals are gone and there's no more deals out there, etc., etc. And it's seriously just isn't true. Whatever obstacles are put in our way in the future, those are going to create opportunities. Where there is adversity, there is opportunity. Because people who don't have training, people that don't have the right network, people that don't have a mentor, people like that, they're at the mercy of the scaremongers and and the tabloids and on the news and the know-it-alls down the pub. They're at the mercy of those people. So those are the people that are going to panic. But we, as sophisticated property investors, can create win-win situations for those people. And so the EPC thing isn't even a massive problem yet, but it's coming. Previously, people will have said this 5, 6, 7 years ago, oh, there's no more good deals out there, it's rubbish. Well, then Section 24 came along, which meant that there was a way to create a win-win situation. And so I just need to make the point here that please just keep an open mind, and whether you think you can or whether you think you can't, you're absolutely right. That's the main point here. There are always problems to overcome. I've just listed them for you. Properties kept in show home condition, problem tenants, could be a problem letting agent, not getting enough money from the property, hit by Section 24, not being able to get their hands on capital allowances. And then another one on top is the EPC issue that's coming along that's going to affect landlords. And when you create a win-win situation in property, you have cracked the code. It is as simple as that. So any questions that you have got on any of those things, by all means, type those into the comments, whether you're watching live or whether you're watching this on catch up. It's going out on lots of my different social media platforms because I'm using a piece of software that puts it all out live at a single time. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to cover these things in a lot more detail. I'm going to be running a live online training with Progressive Property. It's going to be on the 9th of March, and I'm going to be running a live training covering these benefits in a lot more detail in terms of how you can sell the benefits to the landlords in a lot more detail. I'm going to be doing that on the 9th of March. Now, if anyone would like access to that online training, now guess what? We do it via Zoom, and because it's Zoom, it's not a webinar. We do not want too many people on the Zoom because it's too difficult to manage and to, for people to ask their questions and for me to give as much value as possible. So I'm going to limit it to 15 people. Okay, so we've already got people booked onto this live training already. But if you want to also get onto this live training, I'm going to give you access for free for the first 15 people that take me up on that offer. Just write online training in the comments, and one of the team, my team or the team at Progressive, will get you booked on to that. If you're watching this or listening to this on the podcast, then email kevin@propertysoldier.co.uk and just write tickets, please, online tickets or something like that. And my team will reply with a link for you to register for the online training. So any questions, type those into, somebody's already typed online training. Fantastic. So any questions, type those into the comments, type online training in the comments. Again, if you're listening to this on the podcast, then email kevin@propertysoldier.co.uk and I will get you booked on to the online training that I'm going to be running live via Zoom. It's going to be in the morning. It runs from about 9 till 1 p.m. Okay, so 4-hour session. And it's going to be live, and I don't do recordings of it or send those out or anything like that, so you'd need to attend live if you want to get all of that information that I will share with you. So here's to your success in serviced accommodation, everybody, and remember, your future needs you. See you all soon, everyone. Take care.